Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the first of two 2026 Budget Update public engagement sessions. My name is Eric Labadie, Manager of Communications, and I will be moderating today's session. Joining us today, we have our Budget Chair, Councillor Brock McGregor, Michael Dubin, Chief Administrative Officer, Gord Quinton, Chief Financial Officer and General Manager of Finance, Budget, Information Technology, and Transformation, and Steve Brown, Director of Budget and Transformation Services. To help us answer questions submitted throughout our live event, we also have members of our executive management team joining us here as well. If you have any questions, please submit them in the comment section of this live stream, and we will do our best to read them out and provide answers. Please keep your questions concise and civil. For those wishing to learn more about the proposed budget, you can watch the opening night presentation on Your TV Chatham-Kent's YouTube page and or visit chathamkent.ca/ourbudget. We will now begin with a short presentation from our Budget Chair, Councillor Brock McGregor.
Thanks, Eric, and welcome everyone to our Facebook Live budget session. This year's budget really is a roadmap to Chatham-Kent's future, guided by Council's strategic plan and the priorities of the people we serve. During this year's update, we'll work to maintain essential services that our residents rely on, services delivered by dedicated and skilled staff, while finding a balance between service levels and fiscal responsibilities. You'll see later in this presentation that continued operations come in just under 1%, well below the current rate of inflation at 2%. Chatham-Kent is Canada's 9th largest municipality and one of the geographically biggest in Ontario. And we continue to deliver efficient, high-quality services while keeping taxes among the most competitive in the province. Just in context, Chatham-Kent has 1,500 kilometers of paved roads, 194 kilometers of surface-treated level roads, and 1,600 kilometers of gravel roads. And with under 1% of the province's population, we have almost 5% of Ontario's bridges and 20% of Ontario's drains, which shows the challenge of maintaining infrastructure. Over the past number of years, since 2015, we've seen strong population growth, over 6%. And this as we continue to grow, the demand for new infrastructure continues to increase, and the cost of maintaining existing infrastructure has nearly doubled over the past decade. Despite these pressures, there's a lot to be optimistic about. Chatham-Kent's economic outlook remains strong. Chatham-Kent residents pay the lowest property taxes compared to other municipalities in Ontario with a population over 100,000. While preparing our yearly budget update, maintaining affordability for our residents is at the forefront of everyone's mind at the table. The estimated total average tax bill for Chatham-Kent residents, including education portion, was below the provincial average for large municipalities in 2024. This chart compares similar types of property across municipalities as calculated through the BMA Management Consulting study. Chatham-Kent actually has the lowest tax burden on a single detached bungalow of all municipalities with a population over 100,000. We don't anticipate this low tax burden changing in the current multi-year budget, as our comparators have similar tax increases projected. The Ontario Community Infrastructure Fund was designed to help small rural municipalities like ours to build and repair essential infrastructure such as roads, bridges, water, and wastewater systems. Municipalities exactly like Chatham-Kent should benefit from this fund. Chatham-Kent is one of only 3 municipalities in Ontario with a funding cap. We should be receiving $29.3 million annually. That's according to the provincial calculation, but we're capped at $10 million. This means every year this funding cap leaves us with a $19.3 million imbalance. Lifting the cap would close the gap by $19.3 million and give Chatham-Kent the funding to invest in infrastructure while significantly lowering future property taxes. This cap, which only applies to 3 municipalities as mentioned, unfairly penalizes large single-tier municipalities like Chatham-Kent, leaving our community to shoulder the increasing cost of maintaining vital, vast infrastructure networks. The cap results in our taxpayers paying an additional 2% this year alone. The Mayor and Council have made a formal request to the province to stand up for Chatham-Kent by removing the $10 million cap. So this year's budget update has a proposed budget increase of 4.92%. This can be broken down into a number of categories, including maintaining services, so things such as roads, bridges, buildings, culverts, and important infrastructure, social investments such as the cost of the transitional cabin project, increased security and CCTV coverage, and some changes in service, which include an increase in the gravel road conversion, improvements to our grant programs, our fire master plan implementation, and the deputy CAO restructuring, which actually saved us $164,000 this year. Again, if our OCIF funding wasn't capped, we'd be receiving an additional $19.3 million. And because we're not receiving that, we're facing an additional increase of 2% to make up part of that infrastructure gap. As we begin this process, I really encourage all of us to work together in the spirit of collaboration to look for opportunities as a budget committee to move forward in a fiscally responsible way. So to overview how we ended up at this 4.92%, as you'll remember, this is a multi-year process with a forecasted initial increase of 8.77%. With some increased cost that elevated by another 0.29%, following some finding of efficiencies of around 4.36%, that brings us back down to our 4.92%. With that, I will turn it back to Eric to begin moderating the questions.
Thank you very much, Councillor. We haven't got any questions yet, so maybe I can throw it over to Gord. Gord, if maybe I believe there are some slides that you would like to speak to around. Can you bring it up there? And Wendy's just going to add the presentation back. There we are.
Thanks, Eric. Just double checking you can hear me well. I'm Gord Quinton, the Chief Financial Officer of Chatham-Kent, and as Brock had introduced, and just a reminder, please enter any questions you have. But while we're waiting for that, OCF, we've been doing this for quite a few years. This cap, 2026 will be the fourth year of this $10 million cap, and we should be receiving that 19.3 million more based on the 2026 calculations. So you think of that over a 10-year period, close to $200 million. Just think of how far that would go in improving our roads, bridges, and recreation infrastructure, and it just needs to be something that's addressed. So I just wanted to emphasize that once again while we're waiting for some questions, that we do need this help, and we deserve this help from the provincial government. You look around us to Lambton County, where it's close to 18.5 million between the upper tiers and lower tiers in Sarnia and Lambton. Windsor does not receive this type of OCF funding. It's for smaller communities and rural communities, but in Essex County it's over 15 million, and in Elgin County it's over 13 million. So we need similar help, and it's actually the math that's important. These numbers aren't just someone saying this is how much each area is going to get. This is actually based on our asset management plan and calculations that the province does based on that asset management plan that says we need the 19.3 million. Okay.
Thank you very much, Gord. We have our first question. This is from Karen Montgomery. She writes, "Good day, and thank you for allowing my question. Can you give a rough estimate, or maybe you have the figure on hand, what is the percentage of the total budget that represents reserve expenses?"
So reserve expenses, I think do we have do we have things in the budget that are funded from reserves? first of all, I just want to talk about how the capital budget goes. We actually, for life cycle and capital, all that money actually flows in the budget, flows into life cycle and capital reserves, and then project by project is drawn out of that reserve in the capital budget. So that's it's very important to look at both documents, both the operating budget and the capital budget. So that's the major part of how we put money into reserves and then fund those capital projects. But in operating, there are a few things that have been proposed to be funded from reserves. Often these are one-time expenses, or one-time. It may be a period that we're spending something over a period of 1 or 2 or 3 years, but still it isn't a base budget item, and often those items are funded from reserves in the short term. If there's a appropriate reserve available to fund that can be anything from some IT asset upgrades to a one-time use of fund and anything. So those details are in the budget document. I don't have a slide that I can put up on the screen right away, but in every business case, if it's funded from reserves, it'll specifically say that, whether it's a base budget tax ask or whether it's a one-time ask to be funded from reserve.
All right, thank you very much. We have another question, likely for you as well, Gord. How many taxpayer-funded staff are included in this year's budget?
Yeah, so we did have a slide in the opening presentation on that. I'm not sure if you can bring the staffing slide up, but it's Chatham-Kent has added staff in police services and with our Pathways on Park, our cabin project. There have been increases through this term of council on that, but overall, it's worked out that roughly there's been one tax-funded staff member per year in the last 10 years as far as general municipal governance. So we have had a quite extensive reviews of staffing in the last few years. Council actually in 2021 had hired KPMG to do an independent review of where we're at on staffing, and the conclusion of that we were a very lean organization, and that makes sense. Being a single tier, I'll put my position, for example. There's one treasurer for Chatham-Kent. If you go to Essex County, there's one treasurer for every lower tier municipality, and there's one treasurer for the county. So that's where a lot of our efficiencies come in staffing is and why we're a single tier is the leanest model and the most savings to taxpayers.
Thank you very much, Gord. I have another question here. I think it may be for Michael. Can you explain how the creation of the deputy CAO position saved the municipality over $100,000?
Sure, thank you. Michael Dubin here, Chief Administrative Officer. So we created the deputy CAO position once there was a general manager role that retired. So some of you know that Kathy Hoffman had been with us for a number of years. And rather than just replace Kathy straight up with another general manager like we would normally do and most municipalities would do, I decided to do a little restructuring and thought, well, how can we save some money, but at the same time maybe put more emphasis on advocacy and government relations. So rather than add a deputy CAO as a brand new position, we really took the dollars from Kathy's position and we moved that towards the new role. We also had another position which we decided to eliminate, and I can't remember the exact title, but it was manager of strategic initiative, something like that. So we've eliminated that position. We also eliminated a part of a position in one of our other departments in HR. And so that's where the savings came from. So we haven't added a new person to the EMT. We have the same amount of people on the EMT as we had before. Mr. Dave Taylor has been hired as our new deputy CAO, but he's also a general manager. So he's doing some of the functions that Kathy Hoffman did, and we've restructured a little bit as well. So at the end of the day, we haven't increased the size of our team. We've eliminated at least one full-time position, and we've given Dave responsibilities that will hopefully allow us to do better with the province when it comes to advocacy. As you've heard already, we are not getting the fair treatment on the OSIF funding. There are some other applications that we've made over the last couple of years that we haven't been successful on, and we haven't really received much of an explanation as to why. Chatham-Kent as a single tier, thankfully, is involved in a number of different organizations, and we need to dedicate a bit more time to that, and that's part of the reason why I created the deputy CAO role. So proud to say that we're able to save some money by doing some restructuring, and now we have more emphasis on government relations and more emphasis on advocacy.
Great. Thank you very much, Michael. We have a question about the federal funding that came in for the cabins. So that basically is the question. So what happens with the $3.7 million received for the cabin project from the federal government? And that may be for Gord or Jody.
So greatly appreciate the funding that finally came through from the federal government. We had applied through many funding programs, as we do with a lot of our projects. We're always doing our best to put together the best applications we can to senior levels for funding. 3.7 million did recently be announced by CMHC and the federal government to support the pathways on park cabins. So that had a significant savings in this 2026 budget. If you remember, to the 2025 budget, we planned on issuing a debenture to pay for the capital portion of that, and it was approximately $340,000 that was going to be added to the 2026 budget to pay for the debenture costs over 15 years of the capital portion. By getting this grant, we've been able to save taxpayers money, and that's already been included in the 4.92% that you see today. We've already reduced the tax increase because of that funding, and it basically sets us up. We have a council has directed. One of their strategic directions is an investment in quite a bit more of housing across the spectrum, and so we also are looking at affordable housing and supportive housing, and by not having to borrow money for this 3.7 million for the cabins project, we now have more room to borrow, therefore for the other affordable housing projects that are coming along. Jody, is there anything that you'd like to add to that about the cabins?
Jody said no, she doesn't. I just wanted to put it in more simple terms, which is that we were going to borrow $5 million to pay for the cabin project because we didn't know if we were going to get funding. Now we don't have to borrow, as Gord said. And so the savings that we get from the interest payments that we're going to make on the loan is reflected in the budget. So that's that's what's become of the money. I think some people are wondering, well, what, you got this extra money, what are you going to do with it? So we were going to borrow it at a cost, and now we don't have to do that. So that's a saving. So as Gord said, we're very thankful to the CMHC for helping us out with this, and we'd love to see more money coming in from upper levels of government.
Thank you very much, Michael. I believe we have a question here for Edward. What are some of the most significant projects being dealt with in the capital budget?
Thanks, Eric. Edward Solo, General Manager of Infrastructure and Engineering Services. So our capital budget next year is about $140 million. And there's a presentation that we provided to council on opening night that is available to the public to go through. There's a breakdown there between the type of spending that we have there. The majority of the funding is actually being spent on our core infrastructure, being pavement rehabilitation, some major road, underground construction, some stormwater and shoreline work that we have, as well as bridges and culverts. If I was to provide some examples in terms of the projects coming up, we do have a number of projects related to the paving throughout the municipality itself. I would suggest that if residents want to know which projects that we do have a very interactive tool online that you can go into, see where you live, and it'll provide you with a mapping function to see all the various projects in the area. So it is quite varied. We do have quite a number of infrastructure requirements that we need to be doing. We also are undertaking a number of studies next year in terms of things like our waste management, our organic waste diversion feasibility studies being reduced. We have a waste management long-term strategy coming up, and currently we're undertaking as well a building master plan. So I'd encourage the public to go to our website, use that interactive tool, and you can zoom in and see all the particular projects that are of interest to yourself.
Thank you very much, Edward. Just as a follow-up, could you give us a high-level breakdown of the spending on urban versus the spending on rural in the 2026 budget?
We did have a slide. Thanks, Eric. We did have a slide at our presentation which provides the public with a breakdown. Our spending as we move forward next year in terms of the core assets themselves, it's about, I would say, about $90 million. And it's pretty much an even split. And that spending is being spent on things like paving the roads in the rural areas. Majority of our bridges are actually in the rural area. So a lot of the stormwater management is being done also in the rural area. So when you look at that split, it's about 50-50. And we define the rural area as those areas that are outside the urban boundary of both the city of Chatham or the city of Chatham urban area, as well as the urban areas around, say, Thamesville and Bothwell and those sort of areas. So it's about a 50-50 split moving forward.
Thank you very much, Edward. We don't have any new questions at the moment, so I would encourage anybody watching, if you've got a burning question, to post it in the chat, and we will do our best to answer it for you. If you have any And again, I just will say that anybody watching, if you have a question, please feel free to put it in the chat and we will do our best to answer it for you. I see we have around 31 people watching at the moment, so if there's any questions you have, be happy to provide an answer for you. All right, we do have one from Karen Montgomery. She has asked, is there a set plan going forward for an increase in the operational budget to fund the AMP? What percentage increase per year would that be? I believe that would be for you, Gord.
Yes, thank you very much for the question. So in the multi-year budget and this 2026 update, we've had, well, first I'll go back with with our asset management plan, as required by all municipalities across the province. We've been required to invest heavily on data and having the data in place to support the asset management plan. So there has been an intense amount of work done over the last few years to very accurately, it's not perfect, but it's much more better than it's been in the past, and much more accurately quantify our assets. We're over $13 billion of replacement value of assets, and we have a large infrastructure gap. So which means we're funding a lot less than what we should be to maintain the assets in their current conditions. This is one of the reasons why we are so upset with the province and the OCF funding, because they're asking us to invest in asset management plans and have data to support the need, and yet that artificial cap seems to be blocking Chatham-Kent from closing the gap, and with the recent inflation the last few years, it's actually spreading worse, that gap, as costs are increasing far more greater than municipal budgets. So currently, in this multi-year budget, we've been setting aside 1.5% of a tax increase. So 1% of a tax increase is about $2.2 million. So about $3.3 million is being added to the budget, and it's included in this 4.92% for the assets. And in addition to that, we currently have approximately $80 million in the budget going towards infrastructure each year. But of course, the purchasing value decreases unless you add inflation to that amount as well. So we also have an inflation component that we're added to the budget. So approximately half that 4.92% increase is going entirely to infrastructure to fund our asset management plan. And looking forward, we did bring a report to council this summer, recommending that the next term of council consider moving that 1.5% increase to 2.5% increase. We need to be working on close that gap, or else our assets are just going to deteriorate. When they deteriorate, sometimes one of the things about asset management plan is doing the right repairs at the right time, because sometimes you can maintain things and extend their life. If you just let things go, often they fall apart really quickly, and so it's a balancing act with scarce resources, working on the projects that obviously with safety in mind when you're talking about bridges and things like that. But it is tough to rationalize where money goes. We need more funding, and we need the province's help, because I don't think our local taxpayers should be fronting the cost of all this. If we go back decades ago, small towns prior small towns and villages across Chatham-Kent received a lot of provincial grants for their infrastructure. If a bridge was being replaced, likely at least 80 to 90% of the funding came from the province. Now there's none of that except for that OCF funding that we get from the province. So that 10 million doesn't go far anymore, and it's why that needs to change.
Thank you very much, Gord. I've got another question likely for you. The Chatham-Kent Community Hub has recently been passed by council. Will this have an effect on my taxes this year?
As we presented all along, each time there's about 5 votes that came to council with the hub over the last 2 years. And as we've indicated on each of them, we were always setting aside money to repair our assets, as we do in our asset management plan, including the civic center. So the decision that council made about going to the hub was perhaps exciting on the expansion on the library and museum, but for the civic center portion, it was about having a functional civic center, and so we took the funding that was in place and have allocated to that, and including a portion that we need to debenture over 20 years. There's approximately about a third of the project costs we're going to debenture. We're able to even fund that debenture through the current budget. So the 4.92% increase that you're seeing in the 2026 budget update, none of that new funding is going to the CK Hub.
Thank you very much, Gord. This one may also be for you. It reads, I do not receive garbage pickup at my house. I do not have sewers at my house. Am I paying for this through my property taxes?
No, you're not. Garbage pickup is area rated only to the houses that have that service. Water or sewers are only charged through your water and wastewater bills that come on an Integris bill. That's only to houses that are connected. So no, if you're not getting garbage or sewage services, you're not paying a dime for it.
Great, thank you very much. A follow-up from Karen on the AMP. She asks, is there a process for looking at divesting or bringing together any assets to reduce the overall funding needed for the AMP?
Absolutely. Divestment's always an option, and we've over the last decade presented divestment options to council on numerous occasions. Close to a decade ago, we were intensely looking at bridge and road divestment across the municipality. What the feedback from the public was, and what resulted in the councilors' votes over many of those decisions, is that the community did not want to divest its assets. So that's a challenge in asset management planning. We have a lot of assets to maintain, and we need to properly fund it. You just can't have it both ways, right? So now CK Hub, for example, was a excellent opportunity because we had 2 aging assets at the end of their life, with the Civic Center and the current library site. So that became a ideal opportunity to bring the footprint together into one building, along with the Civic Center portion, and with the renewal into that building, reduce our overall asset management costs of those buildings combined. as buildings get to their end of life across Chatham-Kent, that's the perfect time to look at, should there be some co-locating of services into one building? Is there any way we can merge our operations and be able to sell off our aging property, or particularly if, in the future, as we have more and more growth happening, at times in communities across Chatham-Kent, there'll be opportunities to invest in new assets, and we should always look at those opportunities at those perfect times to say, okay, can we bring 3 or 4 different services that are offered in that community and bring it into the one new building and be able to save some funds.
All right, thank you very much, Gord. And once again, you will remain on the hot seat here. We have a question about 0% budget increase. It asks, why can't we just have a 0% budget increase?
So I'm going to start by just explaining how a municipal budget works versus the provincial and federal governments, because we often hear that all they hear about is the municipal tax increases, and that they haven't seen tax increases at the federal or provincial level. You have to remember that the federal and provincial level are based on income taxes and corporation income taxes as well. And so as if someone was to get a 2% raise in wages, for example, well, their income went up 2%, and the federal and provincial governments automatically got that 2% increase in more taxation revenue as well. A municipality doesn't automatically get any inflation, so we need to ask the public for that inflation part as well. And that's where, when Brock at the beginning was demonstrating where the breakdown of the budget buckets into different categories, we're basically at below the close to about half of the rate of inflation on our operations. It's our asset management plan and funding that life cycle plan is where the large increase were. Like I say, years ago there was a lot more funding coming from upper levels of government. So now property taxpayers are being asked to repair assets. Even if we look at the downloaded assets, the former provincial highways, Talbot Trail, Queens Line, Longwoods Road, Highway 21, Ridgetown north to Dresden, all those provincial roads that were downloaded to us that used to be maintained, and the capital life cycle repairs done by the province is now done by the local taxpayers. So when you think of Chatham-Kent being a huge rural community, all our taxes in urban centers and in the rural community now have to fund all that vast amount of infrastructure. So, I lost my train of thought a little bit there. Sorry. Did I answer the question, Eric, or is there more to it?
Yeah, I think that is good. I believe we can move on. We have 2 questions about pathways on park. The first likely will be for you, Gord. This question comes in from Billy. She is concerned with her property taxes going down now that Pathways on Park is in her neighborhood. Will the municipality be lowering her taxes in her area because of Pathways on Park?
Yeah, thanks for the question. So there's 2 parts of how a property bill comes together. Yes, there's the rates and the municipal budget, and that's what we're talking about today, is this potential draft increase to the budget. but there's also your assessment value, and I think that's what you're referring to is whether your assessment value will be reduced. Assessment values are based on sales. That's how that's not the municipality's job. That's the Municipal Property Assessment Corporation. That's constantly looking at sales and the main issue being though that the provincial government has frozen reassessments at their January 1st, 2016 levels. So we're basing our tax bills on that old information. And it looks like we will be for the next year or two until the provincial government completes a review that they're doing right now. But so first process, and I don't mean that about pathways and park or just anything happening in our community. I think overall, since 2016, all properties have on average at least doubled in value since then. What we would do if we got that reassessment value numbers, we would exactly cut the, if the values have doubled, we'd cut the rates in half, and you'd still get the same tax bill. It's how you compare to that average is how any individual property would either go up or down. But the municipality, it's revenue neutral to the municipality. So the pathways and parks is new. In camp, homelessness is an issue across the province. Whether there's any impact on future property values, there's no way we could predict that. I think solving homelessness is something that council is trying to work on, and I think as I talked about earlier today, it's the range of homelessness solutions that we need to work on. The cabin projects being one of them, but also supportive and affordable housing options, with the goal of getting people housed, and that it would just be better for society in general if we had housing solutions. We also need the province to come to the table on addictions and other and mental health issues that are that fall under the Ministry of Health and not a municipal property taxpayers purview. Jody, is there anything else you want to add to that topic?
Here, I'll have to turn that off. Yeah.
Thanks so much, Gord, for that. Jody Gilmet, General Manager of the Health and Human Services Department. I think you've hit a lot on the key points, Gord, in terms of some of the issues that are facing us right now with regards to homelessness. And I think that it's a complex issue. There's no one issue that has led to homelessness. We can look at events in people's lives that have led them to where they are. We can look at circumstances, we can look at environment. And I think it's going to take the community to come together to look at how are we able to support individuals collectively, and what is it that we're able to do. Addictions and mental health is a big one. Income is another piece that is important as well. Inadequate social assistance rates are contributing to some of the problems. There's food insecurity, rising costs in many different areas in all of our lives have caused and contributed to people falling more and more into homelessness, whereas before they would be able to kind of make ends meet. Rent costs were reasonable enough that they could afford to live and to house themselves and to support themselves and their families. So I think you've kind of hit on that, Gord. Thank you.
Michael, is there anything that you would like to add to this?
Yeah, I just want to add to Gord's response. So the problem we have is right now, as Gord said, we're dealing with old information, and that really is a provincial issue. But notionally speaking, if in 2 years' time, if in fact, the province does complete their reassessment, if there's evidence that property values in any neighborhood have gone down as a result of sales and sales values, then it would have an impact on people's taxes, because your taxes are ultimately based on what the value of your home is. So if in fact a neighborhood were to see the property values go down for any reason, it could be proximity to pathways on park, it could be proximity to a school, you just never know what the reasons might impact the property values. So yes, it is possible that over time in a particular neighborhood that property values would go down. But I think Gord was very clear that these are things that are driven by the provincial impact system. So even though it's called Municipal Property Assessment Corp, I think people think that this municipality has something to do with it. We do not. It's called municipal because they do it for all the municipalities across Ontario. So once the province goes through that exercise, it could be that certain neighborhoods do see less property values, which would impact your ultimate municipal taxes.
Thank you very much, Michael. We have a question from our esteemed councillor, Melissa Harrigan, probably for Gord. So it reads, many people have asked me why the municipality is not investing in treatment programs for people impacted by mental health and addictions. Can you share, from a budget perspective, why the municipality is not currently or planning on offering these programs?
Sorry. It really comes down to who does what responsibilities, and it's a slippery slope. Normally, or in the past, mental health and addictions have been provincial responsibilities. I know Chatham-Kent, all the community partners in Chatham-Kent together applied for what they call a heart hub in Chatham-Kent, and that's harm reduction and treatment center. And ideally, I think Chatham-Kent needs one. Currently, the province, I believe they approved 19 across the province, and Windsor and London are receiving them. Of course, they're bigger centers, but Sarnia is also receiving one, which is, population-wise is Sarnia compared to the city of Chatham are quite similar. And so if the municipality was to jump into saying, hey, we're going to take over addictions too, and funding it, that's putting a lot on property tax payers, which I put forward should be paid for by income tax through the upper levels of governments. And this is the slippery slope that we've come down. Housing services was downloaded to municipalities in 2003. Now, property taxpayers are, we do apply for grants and try to get help from upper levels of governments, but otherwise, property taxpayers are now looking at paying for expanding of affordable and supportive housing in Chatham-Kent. So I mentioned the provincial roads in an earlier question that was downloaded. So could council direct that we get into the addiction treatment business? Yes, they could. They could raise taxes to property taxes to do that. There's nothing stopping them from doing that. But I think it's a better source of funding is through the income tax of the upper levels of government, or even sales tax with HST funding things. So I think overall, I'd be recommending to council to push back on that, and but do the advocating to the upper levels of governments, to our MPs and MPPs, that we need help in Chatham-Kent. We obviously have a homelessness problem and addictions problem and mental health problems. Every municipality in Ontario does, but the funding just can't all be on people that own houses, and that is all coming from property taxpayers. It's gotta come from all types of tax funding, and that I hope that's council's direction.
Thank you very much, Gord. Jody, is there anything you would like to add to that?
Thank you, Eric. I couldn't agree more with everything that Gord has mentioned. One comment that I will make is we work really closely with our community partners. We are blessed here in Chatham-Kent to have a really good community group. Our partners are engaged. They are experts in their business, and we work very closely with them, and we partner with them to provide the supports that our clients truly do need. That's not our area of expertise, and so we do work with the experts in our community and leverage the skills that they bring to the table and to the community as well. So thanks for letting me share that, Eric.
All right, thank you very much, Jody. We're reaching the end of our time, and I don't see any new questions popping up. So I'm going to bring our budget chair and our CFO back on screen with us. Councillor McGregor, are there any final words you would like to impart as we wrap this up?
Yeah, I just want to thank everyone who participated today, and remind everyone that we do have another online session tomorrow evening, 7 o'clock. As well, there is an opportunity through the budget deliberations to have your impact. You can provide a deputation at one of the budget meetings. I'd suggest the first night, and those are November 25th, and then if needed to the 27th. As well, you can email members of the budget committee, which are all your members of council, and reach out and get any questions answered or provide any feedback to us. This is a process that we take really seriously. We balance community need, affordability, and the input from community members in how we finalize this budget process. So again, I want to thank everyone for their involvement.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Gord, is there anything else you'd like to add?
No, Brock said it well. We really appreciate everybody's input at every stage in the multi-year budget process. We understand this is hard for councillors. It's hard for the public. Sorry, that we have it. We need the help from the upper levels in this. We're all in this together. I know there's only one property taxpayer overall, but sometimes it's about the right source of taxation paying for the right service, and we need to continue to push that message to the upper levels of government.
Okay, thank you very much, Gord. And that about brings us to our time. So just a reminder, Councillor McGregor kind of covered it, but some things for consideration as we wrap up. That budget deliberations will begin on the 25th of November from 6 to 10 p.m. in council chambers. If you would like to submit a written deputation prior to the budget deliberation meetings, you can send them to Budget and Performance Services at ckfps@chatham-kent.ca by noon on the 25th. All deputations for this year's budget are being held on the opening night, which is November 25th. All of this information and more is available at chatham-kent.ca/ourbudget. And again, thank you everybody for participating, and maybe see some of you tomorrow at 7 p.m.